that, yeah, it is. Those landing spot things, whether they're illegal, not illegal, clean plays, like those are always the ankle. That's what worries you about those plays. All right, let's switch gears because freaking Spurs, man.
Well, usually they're on the other end of those plays.
No, I guess on those plays, yeah, usually they win the lottery in the exact year you want to win the lottery. Unbelievable. R.C. Buford in his blue chair. Unbelievable. Look it up for people who don't know. Pop just grinning in the stands. 5 years, 80 million. I get to coach this kid. Schedule's get my secretary to schedule all the dinners and the wine sessions for post game on the road trip. Unbelievable. In-season tournament format was announced this week. The semifinals and the finals will be here in beautiful Las Vegas in December. The NBA is dividing the 30 teams into 6 groups of 5. 3 groups in the East, 3 groups in the West. All the teams in the group will play head-to-head games against each other, so 4 games apiece. Those will all be on set days in November. So I think that was big because, is that right?
I didn't know that. I admit that the in-season tournament has not been at the top of my focus this week in Vegas.
That's how I read the story. Now I'm going to have Evan Wash on the podcast, the NBA guy who was the architect of this later this week. And I think that's important because the number one obstacle with the group play structure and having the group play games also be regular season games was having fans understand and remember that this game amid an avalanche of games is actually important for another reason. And I think putting as many of those games on the same night, so you turn it into like, hey, this is a group play night. This is a group play night. These are all group play games, makes it pretty easy to understand. And then the 6 group winners and then 2 wild card teams, the highest finishers advance to the quarterfinals, semifinals, etc. Players on the winning team get $500,000. Players on the losing team get $200,000. And the winners get to hoist the first annual NBA Cup, which gets you nothing but the money, but is a cup. It's a cup. I don't know that I missed the press conference. I don't know if the cup has been produced, if it's a chalice, if it's a goblet.
There was a cup there last night. I assumed that it was the cup, and this is a rule of thumb on my Seattle sports podcast I do with my brother, the Fabulous Pelton Cast. It's only a cup if you can drink out of it, which it looked like you could.
Are there any cups, sports cups you can't drink out of? World Cup you can, Stanley Cup you can. What cup can I not?
That's the key appeal of the Stanley Cup. I don't know if I can name the cup that you can't drink out of off the top of my head, but I know they exist. They're
okay. So I initially, like years ago, when this idea was bandied about, was skeptical of it. I was like, nobody will care about this. It's just going to blend in. It's not going to like make teams approach things with more urgency. People pitched all these ideas, like maybe the winning team should be guaranteed a playoff spot. I thought that was crazy. Maybe the winning team should get an extra first round pick. I thought that was a little crazy, and also maybe counter to the interests of the players on the winning team who would have an extra guy coming in to compete for minutes. And so they settled on money. And the more I've sat with it and thought about it, I don't really get why everyone hates this idea so much, or people seem to hate it. I think it's like it's a total no harm, no foul thing to me. And I actually think, provided I'm right, and I'll get more clarity later this week, that the group play games are all kind of clustered together. So there's a little bit of like everyone realizes this is a group play night. I think it's going to be kind of fun. I don't necessarily think like fans are going to be in the finals like stressed and, oh my God, it's crunch time in the NBA Cup, the pressure's on, blah, blah, blah. Like, but I think it'll be kind of fun. And to me, if there's an upside that is just, hey, it's kind of like adds 10% more fun to the NBA regular season, which takes forever and has a million games, I don't see any harm to this. The only harm is 2 teams have to play an 83rd game. And so, okay, so let them load manage, a couple extra games and don't penalize them or anything. I think it's totally fine. And I actually kind of think it's going to be fun.
I think so too. I mean, so I have seen a version of this done in the WNBA the last few years here, where they've added the Commissioner's Cup in the same sense that the regular season games also count towards those standings. And to your point about separating out those dates out on the schedule, the WNBA has not done that. It just is whenever your first game home and away against teams in your conference happens to be, which is especially kind of unusual in the WNBA because conferences have gone away in terms of the actual playoffs. This is the only time really that conferences matter at all. Even the All-Star game, they do not have conferences. You just select the best players overall. So it is difficult to remember necessarily whether this is a Commissioner's Cup game or not. So I think that would be a positive in terms of those regular season games. I mean, I think my biggest concern was, if you played, say, a 32 team tournament and they were to invite, a couple of international teams to fill that out before we get to expansion, which cannot possibly come soon enough for me in Seattle. I think in that case, you would run the risk of everyone compares this to the FA Cup in England or the national cups in various other soccer or basketball leagues throughout Europe. And I think the better comparison is it's more like kind of the second tier leagues cup types of competitions where teams aren't necessarily going to take this very seriously in the early rounds. And it's only kind of when you get close to the finish line that suddenly it's going to get serious. And I think that's why doing it the way that they've done, where it is more than just the WNBA's Commissioner's Cup isn't really a tournament. They only add one extra game between the top finishers in each conference as a championship. So we have a tournament format where we're going to have the 8 teams reduced down to 1, but you're close enough that you're only 3 games away. You'd have to play 2 of those games anyway. I think that is going to be worth teams taking seriously once they get to that point, especially, our colleague Dave McMenamin pointed this out on Twitter on Saturday after the details were announced. Yes, the $500,000 is not going to make very much difference to your star player, but to the player on the end of the bench on the rookie minimum, to, I don't know if the two-way players are eligible, but certainly to them, like that's a big deal to those players. And if you can help them accomplish that, I think that's going to be something worth doing.
Yeah, everyone's all chump change for NBA players, chump change for NBA players. If you make $2 million, $4 million, $5 million, first of all, to be clear, you're incredibly rich and fortunate, and an extra $500,000 is not like, maybe it is life-changing, I don't know, but you're already doing great in life. But if any of us were like, hey, if you win this thing, you get 25% of your salary instantaneously, or an eighth of your salary, or a tenth of your salary, like that is a non-trivial thing for a lot of players. Now, for the stars, it's not that big of a deal. And to your point, like, I don't think so. Here's what Tim Bontemps' story on the play-in, to be clear, says. The group play portion of the tournament will consist of 4 games, one against each of the other 4 members across each group. And the groups are, to be clear, divided by quality of teams from the previous season. They had pots of teams so that you're all playing within your conference, but there's like elite teams, okay teams, and a bad team from the year before. And those games will take place on 7 dates throughout November. This year, those dates will be November 3rd, 10th, 14th, 17th, 21, 24, 28, 4 Fridays, 3 Tuesdays. I'm guessing there will be like other games that are not maybe group play games on those days, but I think they're trying to cluster all the group play games, the way I read it, on those 7 days, which I think is a really smart idea. To your point, I don't think like, oh, it's group play game number 2 between the Celtics and the Magic. I don't think like Jaylen Brown's playing 47 minutes in that game and like someone's coming back early from an injury and everyone's going to go crazy. And that's fine. Like that doesn't have to be part of the deal for it to work. I do think people will sense like there's kind of a fun thing at stake here, and it's easy to track the standings. It's 4 games, like, and you can kind of bulletin board where they are. I think it's going to be a little bit more user friendly and less confusing than it seemed at first. And I'm pro fun. It's going to be fun. Like the semifinals and the finals in Vegas will be fun. And the NBA Cup, cool. Let's try it. What's no harm, no foul. I will say this though, Kevin Pelton, and I'm going to sound like old man yells at cloud. Evan Wash in this article, and I'm going to grill him. I'm going to put the screws to him on this, mentioned the name NBA Cup. And how maybe down the line, sponsors could come in and there could be a renaming. I don't want this to be the Kia presents the Sprite, Taco Bell, Poulan Weed Eater Cup. Keep it the NBA Cup, or name it after an NBA figure, like he named all the awards after the NBA figures. Maybe it ends up being the David Stern Cup. No sponsors, the companies have taken over everything. Let's let this thing over here be a fun little thing that has no sponsor. Commissioner's Cup is a fine name for the WNBA version of this. No Poulan Weed Eater Independence Bowl Cup. That's my only.
Yeah, I kind of assumed it was going to be named the David Stern Cup. That would be from the get go what they would call it. Especially did Stern have any of the awards named after him, the trophies named after him last year?
They named so many things. I lost track of who got one and who didn't get one. I did a whole podcast about this and hot take. I think Tim Duncan didn't get one, and I was upset about it. And now I just don't even remember who got what. I was at a dinner last night trying to remember who I voted second team all rookie. I was with an agent and we were talking about one of his clients, and I was like, I don't know. I don't even remember. I have a fun one for you. I'm going to spring this on you. Ready?
Okay.
In-season tournament related, but not really. I was out to dinner with a buddy of mine last night who works for a team. And I had forgotten that I think him and another one of our mutual NBA connections had come up with this idea for a fake tournament that we thought would be a very fun event to see. A 3-on-3 tournament involving all 30 teams, where the 3 players on your team have to be the number one principal owner of the team, the number one basketball decision maker of the team, and the head coach. And back in the day, it was like, we just thought it would be funny if those are the 3 players on your team, like who would win, who would be the worst team, who's the worst possible player that you could have. And back in the day, it was like, well, it's Charlotte. Like, as long as Charlotte has Jordan, it's over for them. Well, Jordan's 60 now, I think. Jordan, Mitch Kupchak, Steve Clifford feels like a vulnerable team. Off the top of your head, do you like this idea? Should we do it? And who is a strong team?
Of course I like this idea. The team that comes to mind, and this is strange to me because I legitimately had a dream the other night that I was a former NBA player. I'd ground out like a modest career given my lack of physical tools. And I was an assistant coach now. And I was explaining to the head coach of my team why I had not had as successful a career as him, because I was pointing out, look at how long your arms are relative to mine. Look at how big your hands are relative to mine. And that head coach was Jason Kidd. And I think the Mavericks with Kidd, Nico Harrison, I don't know if Mark Cuban's still playing to the same degree that he was.
The owner is a wild card. We were having conversations last night. Like, if I just triple teamed Willie Green, can Gail Benson make a wide open layup? Like, if she's just under the rim, can she catch the ball and make enough wide open layups to beat me? I thought a sneaky. I don't know a lot about Joe Tsai's game, but the Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, Jacques Vaughn combination seems like a strong one to me.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.